The scent of incense lingers in the air like memory, heavy, sweet, suffocating. You hear it before you see it, the slow crackle of burning joss paper, the rustle of silk sleeves brushing against wooden coffins, the soft wails of women veiled in white. Beneath a canopy of willow trees, a mother bows 3 times before a body she no longer recognizes. In her hands, a bowl of rice, untouched, left out for a soul that will never eat again. You are there, barefoot on the cold earth, where the living beg the dead not to linger. In ancient China, to die was not the end. It was a beginning more ritualized, more feared, and far more beautiful than you imagine. If this story stirs something ancient in you, some echo of grief or reverence for forgotten ways, tell me, could you bear to face death when it was a ceremony, not a silence? Subscribe and share your thoughts below. The flame in the corner of the room trembles, not from wind, but from breathlessness. Its glow pools across lacquered floorboards, washing over pale faces etched with the stillness of waiting. You kneel beside a body that still clings to its last threads of life. The old man's chest rises slowly, unevenly, like the tide drawing back before it disappears for good. His skin, once taut with laughter and years, is thin as rice paper now, stretched over bone and silence. The room is silent, but not still. You hear the hush of fabric as someone adjusts their robes, the soft weep of a child muffled into a mother's sleeve. A bell rings in the distance, far away and barely heard, a monk calling the hour. But here, in this room heavy with incense and anticipation, time no longer matters. You are in the last breath of a life, and the first breath of a death. The moment of death, an old proverb says, is when the soul remembers its weight. The old man exhales, not loudly, not dramatically, but like a lantern going out in a windless place. One final shudder, and the room breaks. A woman wails. A younger man stumbles to his knees. The silence, once reverent, now erupts into ritual. You feel it first in the air, a sharp change, like frost sneaking through a door left open. Death has arrived, and with it, the long choreography begins. If this quiet moment touched something ancient in your spirit, subscribe and walk this forgotten road with me. What would you offer someone you loved, if their final breath still hung in the air? A hand moves to the window. It is closed now, gently but firmly, with the care of one sealing a jar of fireflies. The belief is old and trembling, like the soul itself. If left open, the spirit may wander. Another hand covers the mirror, pulling a cloth across the glass like a curtain drawn on a play's final act. The reflection must not trap the dead, must not call them back. Each act is small, each gesture sacred. The body lies flat now. The sons begin to remove the old man's outer robes, not in haste, not in desecration, but with the same reverence as one would unwrap a relic. Cloth by cloth, they return him to the world bare, vulnerable and honest. You can smell the sandalwood that begins to smoulder at the altar. Smoke curls up in lazy ribbons, as if rising to greet the spirit. Outside, the world continues as if nothing has changed. The crows still call from the roof tiles. The river still murmurs. But inside, the family world has turned. You watch as the eldest son bows 3 times before his father's now silent chest. His shoulders tremble, but his voice is steady. He recites a line from the Book of Rites, not because he believes, perhaps, but because belief is the only thing left when the body grows cold. A servant brings water in a clay bowl. The eldest daughter dips a cloth and begins to wash her father's hands. First the right, then the left. Fingers that once taught her to hold a brush, now curl slightly inward. The ritual of bathing the dead is not just cleansing. It is farewell. You are not washing a corpse. You are releasing the last memories from skin. You step back, watching from the edge of the lamplight. You are a guest here, but not a stranger. Death welcomes everyone eventually, and in ancient China, death is not a secret. It is not hidden in hushed corridors or sanitized rooms. It is acknowledged, named, dressed in formality and devotion. The mother, now a widow, does not cry, not here. Her face is carved from silence. Her mourning will come later, wrapped in long days and white robes. For now she nods to the monk who arrives with a string of wooden beads around his neck. He sits by the head of the deceased and begins to chant, slowly, rhythmically, with a voice like a distant drum. The sound does not wake the body. It does not need to. It is not for the dead. It is for the living, to remind them that life continues, even in this room of endings. The lantern flickers again. The shadows on the walls stretch longer. The monk lights a stick of incense and places it in a small bronze holder shaped like a lotus. You watch as the smoke coils upward, as if the spirit has become mist. Not gone, but changing shape. In the corner of the room, a child begins to cry, not in fear but confusion. He does not understand what has left the room, only that it has. His mother whispers into his ear and rocks him gently, pressing his face into her shoulder. "Say goodbye," she says softly, and though the boy does not know what that means, he obeys. Later, the body will be wrapped in linen and laid upon a wooden plank. But for now, it remains open to the world, eyes closed not in sleep, but in passage. Someone has placed a peach blossom near the chest, a symbol of protection, of rebirth, of fleeting beauty. The flower is pink, absurdly alive, against the pale skin. The old man's name is still spoken in the room, whispered, not yet past tense. In ancient Chinese belief, the soul hovers for days before it finds its way. It lingers near the body, near the home, and so the family speaks to him gently, as though he was still listening. And, perhaps he is. Outside the door, the sky has darkened. A crow lifts from the rooftop and disappears into the night. Inside, the ritual has only just begun. Death here is not an end. It is a long unfolding, a careful unwrapping of threads, a dance between the visible and the invisible. You are a witness now, to grief not as chaos, but as ceremony. And somewhere, between incense smoke and soft weeping, the first night of mourning begins. The morning arrives, not with sunlight, but with silence. A silence heavier than sleep, broken only by the brush of cloth and the muted sobs of ritual. You rise early, stepping barefoot onto cold stone. The courtyard smells of wet earth and ash. Above you, the willow branches bow low, as if mourning with the family. Today is not for remembering the man who died. Today is for becoming what the world expects of you, a mourner. A basin waits at the door, filled with water drawn before sunrise. One by one, family members dip their hands, wash their faces, and bow. You follow them, feeling the chill of the water kiss your skin, a reminder that you are among the living, and that the dead deserve clean hands in their honor. The old woman beside you, the widow, no longer speaks. Her lips are tight as thread, her eyes lined with sleepless hours. In the main room, the body has been laid out on a wooden plank, draped in white linen. Around it, a shifting of feet, a quiet rearrangement of people. The eldest son stands in the center, stiff with responsibility. A servant approaches, with a bundle of garments folded with mathematical precision. The son bows low, receiving the robe as though it were a scroll from the heavens. You watch as he unfurls it, a plain white hemp garment, rough and without ornament. White, in this place, is not purity. It is absence. It is the color of unmaking. The son removes his outer clothes, then steps into mourning. The robe hangs shapelessly, turning him into something between monk and shadow. His hair is tied in a knot of grief, and his face remains lowered. You see the others follow, siblings, cousins, uncles, all donning white. Even the smallest child, barely able to stand, is dressed in cloth that brushes the floor. Mourning here is not felt alone. It is a uniform, a script, a choreography that stretches back through centuries. In the courtyard, women begin to wail, not softly, not decorously, but with voices that crack open the air like thunder in spring. The sound is almost animal. It climbs and dips, rising in waves that seem to shake the stones. It is not spontaneous. You learn quickly. There is a rhythm, a discipline to this performance of pain. The loudest voices belong to hired mourners, professional women brought in to weep on behalf of the family, to ensure the spirit knows it was loved. Their wailing is not insincere. It is ceremony. To cry for the dead is not shameful. It is holy. You stand among them, watching the sons kneel beside the coffin, their heads bowed so low their foreheads touch the ground. Every motion is deliberate. They rise, bow, kneel, bow again. They do this again and again, every movement echoing centuries of filial duty. Your knees ache just watching them. The earth beneath them grows darker with the sweat of sorrow. Inside, the widow prepares incense. She lights 3 sticks, bows with trembling arms, and places them upright in the small bronze burner beside the coffin. She does not cry. Her mourning is quieter, more private. Buried beneath layers of habit and years, she kneels before the coffin and speaks a single line. "Go peacefully, husband. Do not look back." It is not a request. It is a plea, because to look back is to linger, and a lingering spirit can bring sickness, misfortune, madness. A servant appears with a red cord and ties it around the children's wrists. Red repels the dead. Red tells the spirit, "These are not yours to take." You see the children stare at the cords in confusion, their small faces caught between ritual and reality, but no one explains. This is how it has always been. Mourning in ancient China was not just for the living, it was for the world itself, to keep balance, to honor order, to hold chaos at bay. Later you join a line of villagers who come to pay respects. Each carries something small, a piece of fruit, a folded fan, a scrap of silk. They bow 3 times, touch their foreheads to the ground, then move aside. You notice that some do not look at the body directly. To meet the eyes of the dead is to invite dreams, and dreams, they say, are doors. As the afternoon passes, the scent of sandalwood thickens. The room grows warm with bodies, but no one removes their robes. The heat is part of the discomfort, and discomfort is part of mourning. Grief is not meant to be soothed. It is meant to be endured, publicly, purposefully. You sit beside a younger son, his robe too long, his eyes swollen. He has not eaten since yesterday, and no one urges him to. Mourning is a fast, a way to show that the dead are more important than the appetites of the living. He whispers that his father once taught him to carve birds from driftwood. He carries one now, tucked in his sleeve, a final gift. You watch him approach the coffin, place the bird gently beside his father's hands, then bow until his forehead touches the floor. The sun begins to lower. Shadows return to the courtyard, stretching long and crooked. The professional mourners gather their things, their voices hoarse. They've done their duty. Their job is not to comfort, but to declare, to make sure the heavens heard the sorrow. The family gathers for one final round of ritual. This time, they face west, where the sun dies each day. They bow 3 times. A gong sounds, a bell is struck 12 times, once for each earthly branch of time. Then silence returns, like a tide pulled back into the sea. You remain seated long after the others have left, your white robe rustling softly with the evening breeze. There is a peace here now. Not relief, not joy, but peace, the kind that follows discipline, kind that comes from doing what was required, even when the heart resists. In this culture, sorrow does not wander. It is harnessed, channeled, made visible. The mourner in white is not lost. He is guided. The fire crackles in the kitchen, its glow painting the clay walls with trembling amber. You step inside, the air thick with steam and memory. A large pot simmers over the flame, releasing the soft scent of jasmine rice and boiled broth. But no one is here to eat. The bowls arranged on the table are not for the living. Their contents, rice, tea, small cuts of meat, are placed with solemn hands and bowed heads. Each offering is a conversation, unspoken but urgent. You feel it in the way the woman touches the rim of the bowl before she sets it down, as though apologizing, as though begging. The dead, you're told, can grow hungry. Not in the way flesh does, but in the way longing eats at what's left behind. A soul, newly departed, may still crave the meals it once loved, the smells of home, the textures of steam and salt. You kneel beside a boy who sets down a pickled plum, with quiet reverence. It was his father's favorite, he says. His voice cracks at the end, and he bows quickly, hoping the others didn't hear. But you do. You hear everything in this room of warm hands and cold absence. An old man takes a paper scroll from a bamboo case. He reads aloud the names of ancestors, each syllable drawn out like thread. You watch him, eyes closed, lips moving, sweat beading on his brow. These names are not just spoken, they are summoned, invited. The ancestors must know that another has joined them. Another bowl must be set out, another mat laid beside the hearth of memory. You help arrange the offerings. 3 bowls of rice, 3 cups of tea, 3 pairs of chopsticks pointed inward. Never outward. Outward is disrespect. Outward is forgetting. Each gesture is ancient, precise. The chopsticks are never stuck upright into rice. To do so would mimic the incense burned for the dead. It would suggest an invitation not to dine, but to stay. And the dead must not stay. Behind you, a young woman carefully folds sheets of yellow paper into the shape of silver ingots. They crinkle softly as she works, her fingers swift and practiced. This is joss paper, ghost money, currency for the afterlife. You help her fold a few, your clumsy edges betraying your inexperience. She smiles faintly and tells you not to worry. Even the imperfect will burn, she says. And the dead are never greedy, they are only lonely. Later, in the courtyard, a small brazier is lit. The wind is gentle, but the fire dances wildly, as if eager for the task ahead. You join the others, each holding a handful of paper riches. One by one, the offerings are fed to the flame. The paper shrinks, curls, blackens, and disappears. Smoke rising in tendrils that disappear into the dusk. You think of it then, how much we give to what we cannot see. How much love lives in gestures that never expect reply. A monk recites a chant beneath his breath. The sound is low, like wind rustling dry grass. The children are quiet, watching the fire consume what they have built. You wonder what they imagine. A palace forming in another world, lined with these paper treasures, or perhaps nothing at all. Perhaps it's just the comfort of doing what's been done before. When the fire dies down, the ashes are swept carefully into a ceramic jar. They will be scattered in the stream before sunrise. The stream flows west, toward the lands of the dead. Water carries wishes. Water remembers. Back inside, the air has grown cooler. The bowls are still untouched. No one eats. No one dares. These are for the spirit. The eldest daughter opens the door just a crack, then bows 3 times. She calls softly into the night, using the name of her father, her voice full of rain. She tells him to eat, to rest, to go where he must, and not look back. But the wind does not answer. After a time, the bowls are cleared, not thrown away, not eaten. The rice is buried beneath the roots of a tree in the courtyard. You help dig the small hole, your hands trembling from the cold. A woman whispers that this ensures the soul is grounded, that it finds the earth again, that it does not drift, lost. And still, beneath all this, you feel it. The fear. Not fear of the dead, but fear of forgetting, fear of breaking the chain. In this tradition, death is not a silence. It is a hunger that must be fed, an echo that must be answered. Every grain of rice is a word, a comfort, a thread binding one world to another. Later, you lie on the mat in your room, listening to the soft murmur of wind brushing the paper windows. Somewhere outside, the last ember of joss paper flutters and dies. You imagine the soul of the old man watching, waiting, listening to the breath of the living, as he steps farther from the warmth of his name. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you wonder if someone will feed you when you go, if someone will fold silver for your hands, if someone will remember what you liked with your rice. And the thought is not frightening, only tender, only human. The scent of fresh-cut wood greets you before the sound, the rhythmic rasp of a plane drawn across grain, the hollow knock of carpenters testing a plank's strength with their knuckles. In a workshop dimly lit by narrow slats of sun, men bend over their workbenches, surrounded by towering beams of cedar, cypress and pine. But this is not a place of building, it is a place of departure. And what they build is not a house. It is a vessel for the soul. You approach slowly, your footsteps softened by sawdust. The coffin lies at the center, unfinished, resting atop 2 stone blocks. Its form is simple, a long rectangle with gently curved sides, like the hull of a boat waiting for river water. A man traces a line across its surface with powdered chalk. Another, kneeling, inlays the character for longevity into the lid, not as a mockery, but as a hope carried beyond the breath. In ancient China, coffins were more than containers. They were fortresses, they were ships, they were offerings, and their construction was governed not only by wood and nail, but by stars and wind. A man wrapped in robes the color of dust emerges from behind a curtain. He carries no tools, only a compass suspended from a string, and a thin bundle of bamboo slips. He is not a carpenter, he is a geomancer, a master of feng shui. You follow him as he walks the perimeter of the workshop, pausing occasionally to consult the compass, murmuring beneath his breath. The direction the coffin faces will shape not just the soul's journey, but the fate of those left behind. North invites coldness, misfortune. South brings clarity. East favors rebirth. West, the land of the dead, is both feared and revered. He traces symbols in the air, recalculates, shifts the coffin slightly to the east-northeast. Only then does he nod, satisfied. You feel it then, the heavy belief that death radiates, not as finality, but as influence. The dead, once buried, are not gone. They are dormant forces, sleeping stars, able to bless or wither the generations that follow. The master carpenter calls you closer. His hands are scarred, his fingernails dark with ink and resin. He shows you the wood, cypress, harvested in winter, aged precisely 3 years. It resists rot. It speaks little. It remembers. He knocks on it twice. This wood, he says, will keep the soul warm. You run your fingers along the inner walls. They are smooth, polished with oils made from sesame and camellia seed. No nail is visible. Each joint is locked with wooden pins and dovetails. Ancient techniques designed to endure time and silence. For nobles, the coffins would be thick. Layered wood, multiple boxes nested within one another like secrets. For the poor, a single slab might suffice, or even a mat of woven reeds. But whether emperor or beggar, the orientation matters. The burial place must face the proper flow of chi, the breath of the world. An incorrect burial brings disharmony. Crops fail, children fall ill, ancestors go silent. You are led next to a scroll, unfurled across a table. On it, brushstrokes form a map, not of terrain, but of energy. Mountain ranges curve like dragons, rivers coil like serpents, and tiny rectangles mark burial grounds, positioned with care. One wrong turn, one careless placement, and the spirit may grow restless, it may return. The young apprentice brings you a jar of lacquer. Together you coat the outside of the coffin with long, smooth strokes, sealing the wood not just from moisture, but from forgetting. As the lacquer dries, the surface darkens to a deep reddish black, a color believed to protect against spirits and decay. The coffin's foot, a space is carved to hold a talisman, a rolled charm wrapped in silk thread, containing characters meant to bind the soul in peace and keep the hungry ghosts at bay. For the wealthier, there may be jade, coins, or calligraphy hidden within the panels, objects to soothe, bribe, or guide. You pause at the head of the coffin, sensing something unspeakable. Not fear, but awareness. You are preparing a vessel for someone's forever. The care matters. The angle matters. The weight, the wood, the whisper of wind. All of it plays a part in making death bearable. Not just for the departed, but for those who must continue to live beneath their memory. The workshop grows quieter as dusk leans in. The final plank is sanded, the nails counted, the lid gently placed atop the base. Not sealed yet, but waiting. The geomancer places a burning stick of incense beside it. The smoke rises slowly, curling toward the rafters like a question. Outside, the sky shifts from blue to bone. The birds fall silent, and in the hush, you feel it, the presence of all those coffins before this one, all those who lay within them. All those whose directions, whose positions, whose final sleep shaped the fates of dynasties and dust alike. You step back from the wood, your palms warm with the memory of its grain. You do not speak. No one does. The coffin has been prepared, not as an end, but as a beginning, the first step in the journey, beyond the body, beyond the earth, beyond the compass itself. The rain begins before dawn, soft, steady, like the breath of a sleeping world. You wake to the sound of it pattering gently on the tiled roof, mingling with the quiet rustle of robes being unfolded behind a paper wall. Today, the body must be dressed, not in haste, not for display, but in accordance with the silent laws of the soul's journey. You enter the room where the dead man lies, his form now wrapped in a linen shroud. The air is thick with the perfume of camphor and dried petals, clove and chrysanthemum, scents meant to preserve, to purify, to console. A low table stands beside the body, covered in silk and ritual items. A small mirror, a red string, a jade bead, no larger than a pearl. Each object carries weight far beyond its size. A woman sits cross-legged on a straw mat, carefully folding the burial garments layer by layer. Her fingers move with reverence, not haste. These are grave clothes, woven not for beauty but for meaning. The inner layer, hemp, coarse and unadorned, absorbs the oils of the body. The outer garments are linen, dyed a ghostly pale. Then finally a robe of silk, its sleeves long, the cuffs embroidered with the character for peace. Dressing the dead in ancient China was not a simple matter. It was a rite, a final act of love and duty. The garments must be clean, untainted by sorrow or sickness. You help lift the fabric, feeling its weight, heavier than expected. As though grief has settled into the thread, the robe slips over the body like a final breath. It rests gently, covering the chest, the arms, the memory of muscle. The eldest son steps forward, holding a narrow jade bead between his fingers. With hands that tremble slightly, he places it beneath his father's tongue. A stillness falls over the room, like wind disappearing. Jade, the stone of purity and preservation, is believed to anchor the soul, to keep it from decay, from dispersion, from the hunger of ghosts. You learn that emperors were once buried in entire suits made of jade, thousands of pieces cut and sewn together with threads of gold or silver. The jade was not ornament, it was armor, against rot, against time, against a loss of name. For the man before you, there will be no suit of jade, but the single bead will suffice, a talisman, a promise. Next, a coin is pressed into the palm of the right hand, ancient copper, worn smooth. It is payment for the underworld, a toll for the bridge between realms. Without it, the spirit may wander. Without it, the gates of the beyond may never open. The woman wraps the coin in red thread, a color that repels evil. The thread winds around the wrist, binding the past to the future, the body to the ritual. You notice how precise each gesture is. There is no improvisation. Everything has been done this way for generations. Hair, too, must be tended. A comb carved from sandalwood is passed through the man's silver strands, smoothing them back into a topknot. In life this was a mark of dignity. In death, it is a way to restore order, to honor the person they were, even as the flesh surrenders to silence. For a moment you close your eyes, and imagine your own hair being brushed this way, your own hands wrapped in thread, your mouth closed with jade. The image is not frightening, it is humbling. A girl enters with a bundle wrapped in linen. Inside, small objects, a brush, a scroll, a carved ivory seal, the dead man's most treasured belongings. These are not buried for remembrance. They are provisions. A soul, after all, needs more than prayers. It needs tools, tokens, reminders of who it was. You watch her arrange them at the foot of the coffin, each item touching the next, as though they too were saying goodbye. Outside, the rain has lightened. The light that filters through the window is grey, soft, forgiving. The final touch is perfume, a sachet of herbs placed at the heart, mugwort, lavender, and bits of dried orange peel, tied in silk. It does not mask the truth of death, but offers sweetness in the place where the breath once lived. Then the lid of the coffin is raised, not yet sealed, only placed gently atop the frame. The ritual is complete. The body is now dressed for its long journey, cloaked not only in cloth, but in the language of devotion. You sit back, the damp scent of silk and wood in your nose. You think of all the ways the living care for the dead, not with fire or fear, but with threads, with stones, with stories sewn into sleeves. And in that stillness, a thought surfaces. To dress the dead is not to let them go. It is to prepare them to walk where you cannot follow. The morning mist has not yet lifted when you enter the ancestral hall. The air inside is still and cool, untouched by fire or wind. You remove your shoes at the threshold. The stone beneath your feet is damp, and each step echoes though you do not walk loudly. Here, in this sacred chamber of silence, even breath feels like trespass. Before you stand a wooden altar, carved from sandalwood, burnished smooth by 1,000 hands. Upon it, a row of tablets, upright and identical in shape, yet deeply individual in meaning. Each one, simple in form, narrow, tall, stained, a deep oxblood hue. But it is not the wood that holds your gaze. It is the names. Vertical lines of black ink, brushed with steady hands. Names, titles, sometimes poems. The writing is small, reverent, never hurried. And as your eyes trace the characters, you realize These are not markers of memory. These are homes. You watch as the father kneels on a reed mat before the altar. His robe is still white from mourning, damp at the hem. In his hands, a new tablet, freshly cut. The name of his son, who drowned just 6 days ago, waits to be written. A brush, dipped in black ink, hovers over the surface. The father's hand shakes. The ink drips once, staining the bottom edge like a tear. He writes slowly. With each stroke, you sense a transfer from flesh to spirit, from this world to the next. The son, now a soul, will live here, in this small block of wood, set beside his ancestors, forever greeted, forever bowed to. A woman beside you lights 3 sticks of incense. She closes her eyes, touches the tips to her forehead, then plants them upright in the sand-filled holder before the altar. The smoke rises in a fine column, splitting near the top like a willow branch. It curls around the tablet, embracing it, as if recognizing the new arrival. You bow 3 times, just as she does. First for the sky, then for the ancestors, then for the soul itself. There is no coffin here, no body. That has been buried. This is what remains. A name carved into wood, placed beside the others, tended daily with bowing, with incense, with whispered stories. In ancient Chinese belief, this tablet is more than symbol. It is shelter. The soul returns to it, rests within it, listens through it. Meals will be eaten in front of this altar. Weddings announced. Newborns introduced. The dead do not vanish. They become part of the family. An invisible lineage stretching back through centuries. You feel it in the way the family moves. Every gesture oriented toward those who no longer breathe, but still belong. Later, a monk enters the hall. His robe is the color of damp clay, his prayer beads clicking softly with each step. He chants low and steady, drawing sacred characters in the air with a single finger. He bows to the new tablet and sprinkles water from a cedar branch. You are told this blesses the wood, sanctifies it, gives the spirit a doorway. Outside, wind rattles the bamboo chimes. But inside, time has stopped. A boy sits beside you, no older than 10. He whispers that he once saw his grandfather's spirit, not in a dream, but in the corner of the room, standing near the altar, smiling. No one believed him, but he tells you quietly, they come when they're needed. And perhaps he is right. The father finishes writing and places the tablet beside the others. For the first time in hours he breathes fully, shoulders slumping like a roof. After snowfall, he bows deeply, then stands. His son's soul now has a resting place, not under stone, not beneath earth, but here, among the living. As the family files out, you remain behind. You look again at the row of tablets, so many names, so many stories you will never know. Yet something holds them together, beyond blood, devotion, continuity, the refusal to forget. You reach forward and touch the edge of the newest one. It is still warm. You think of your own name, of your breath still moving in and out. You wonder if someday someone will carve your life into lines of ink, and if your soul will linger in wood, waiting for the smell of incense, the sound of footsteps, the shape of a hand pressed to a bowed forehead. And suddenly the world feels both vast and intimate. A life so fragile. A name so powerful. A tablet so small. Yet, within it, eternity. The path winds along a mountain ridge, narrow and worn, where mist clings to the pines like memory. You walk beside a procession of the living and the dead, white-robed mourners, leading a coffin strapped to wooden poles, swaying with each careful step. But it is not the sight that lingers. It is the sound. A voice rises into the cold air. High, raw, trembling. A woman stands at the head of the path, singing not to those present, but to someone who cannot answer. Her voice is not polished. It is cracked by age, by tears, by the shape of loss. She sings of childhood and bitter winters, of unspoken regrets and years that slipped by unnoticed. Her words are ancient, passed down not through ink but through mouths. Her melody wraps around the hills like smoke. You have entered the world of the funeral singers. In ancient China, grief was not hidden. It was sung into the dirt, into the sky, into the bones of those who remained. Professional mourners were hired to ensure that sorrow echoed loud enough for the ancestors to hear. Their voices served two purposes: to comfort the spirit of the dead, and to prove to the gods that the living had not forgotten. You watch as the woman moves beside the coffin, her long sleeves trailing like wings. Two other singers join her, a trio now, harmonizing not in perfection, but in ache. Their rhythm is slow, matched to the beat of a small drum carried by a boy no older than 12. He strikes it once, waits, then strikes again, a heartbeat, constant and grounding. The coffin is lowered gently into the grass for a moment's rest. The singers encircle it, their bodies swaying. One lifts a bamboo flute to her lips, and begins a breathless, wavering melody. It is not cheerful, but neither is it bleak. It is the sound of memory folding in on itself, soft and brittle as old paper. You learn that some of these songs are hundreds of years old. They are not written down. Each region, each village, has its own verses, its own cadences. One verse may describe the dead's childhood. Another pleads with the soul to leave peacefully. Another still curses the cruelty of fate. Together they form a tapestry of grief, thick, woven, lived. The family stands quietly as the singers continue. No one interrupts. Even the youngest child, confused and fidgeting moments ago, now watches with wide, unblinking eyes. You feel it too, a hush that is not silence, but presence. The songs have conjured something, not a ghost, not a god, but a feeling that the world has opened slightly as if time itself is listening. A man near you whispers that these songs open the road. He means the spirit path, the invisible journey the soul must walk to reach the ancestral realm. Without song, the path is unclear. With it, the soul finds light, direction, relief. As the coffin is lifted again, the singers fall behind, continuing their chant. Their voices rise and fall like waves against stone. You feel your chest tighten with a grief that is not yours, but it could be. That is the power of their song. It reminds you that sorrow is universal, that one day your name too may be sung by strangers, with cracked voices and steady feet. The mountain trail narrows. A hawk circles overhead, silent. The drum beat slows. The singers change tone, now pleading, now intimate. You understand none of the dialect, but the meaning is clear. Farewell, rest, do not forget us, but do not return. The final song is the simplest. A single voice, no instruments, no harmony, just one old woman, her face lined with wind and years, singing to a coffin beneath a cedar tree. Her words spill out like prayer, like apology. You stand there, unmoving, the earth cool beneath your sandals, as her song drifts into the valley. And then, silence. Not absence, just stillness. The kind that follows when something has ended properly, respectfully. The soul, they say, has heard. The path is clear. The singers bow 3 times and turn to leave. They do not wait for thanks. Their work is sacred, but not personal. They do not grieve the dead. They grieve for grief itself. You remain behind, heartful and strange. The melody lingers, not in your ears, but somewhere deeper, in the hollows where your own memories live. You wonder, when your time comes, who will sing for you, what stories they will tell, whether their voices will tremble, and whether the road, for you too, will open. Twilight presses against the sky like damp silk, soft and slow. The village is quiet, but it is not asleep. Lanterns flicker to life one by one, their orange glow bleeding through paper walls, casting long shadows onto cobbled lanes. You walk slowly beneath a canopy of smoke and incense, following the smell of roasted chestnuts and sandalwood ash. Tonight is not a festival of joy. It is a reckoning. It is the 7th lunar month, Ghost Month, when the gates of the underworld swing wide and the forgotten dead slip through. The air tastes different. Not bitter, but expectant. The villagers whisper as they move, barefoot and careful, placing bowls of rice and fish on windowsills, coins under stairwells, lanterns at the feet of ancestral tablets. Even the dogs are quieter tonight, noses twitching at the scent of something unseen. You feel it too, not a presence exactly, but the absence of solitude. You are not alone. At a crossroad outside the temple, an old woman lights a bundle of joss paper and bows low to the flames. The papers curl, rise, fake money, paper houses, tiny cutouts of robes, even a cardboard sedan chair. all offered to the spirits of those who died without family, without rights, without names. She turns to you and says, not unkindly, the hungry ones come first. In ancient Chinese belief, spirits that died violently, forgotten, or improperly buried, become eager, hungry ghosts. Not evil, but empty. They wander through the world of the living, mouths too small to eat, bellies never full, always searching for the warmth of remembrance. On this night, they are everywhere, and everyone, even children, knows to feed them. You follow the woman to a shrine made from old bricks and red banners. There, candles flicker in bowls of rice, plates of boiled eggs, melon slices, sesame cakes. No one dares touch them, they are not for you. Nearby, a family lights sky lanterns, releasing them into the dark. Each carries a wish, or perhaps a warning, lifted into the black with trembling fingers. A small boy kneels before a lantern, whispering his grandfather's name 3 times. He releases it, and it drifts upward, carried by hope and heat. Along the riverbank, the most desperate offerings are made: whole chickens, bottles of rice wine, handwritten poems folded into boats and set afloat. You kneel beside a man who burns a photograph, his wife, long gone. He closes his eyes and murmurs, "Don't be cold." Not everyone fears the hungry ghosts. Some pity them. Some believe that with the right offerings, with enough care, they may be reborn. But there is always caution. Mirrors are covered. Whistling is forbidden. Shoes are turned inward. Children are warned not to play in corners or call each other's names after dusk. The boundary between the worlds is too thin. A Taoist priest walks past you, shaking a bell that sings with silver notes. Behind him, a procession follows. Lanterns bobbing like fireflies in the night. They chant in low tones, drawing protective circles in ash, reciting mantras that send the ghosts back to where they belong. One woman in the crowd weeps openly. Her daughter, they say, drowned 2 summers ago. Her tablet is not yet placed. The spirit, perhaps, is still wandering. Tonight, she feeds the ghost in case it is hers. You think of your own dead, named or not, close or distant, and wonder if any walk with you now, if your breath is being watched, if your silence is being filled by their listening. Later, at midnight, the final offering is made. At the edge of the village, a stage has been built, red curtains, tall wooden poles, a platform painted with dragons. An opera begins, but the front row is left empty, always reserved for the unseen. The music is shrill and strange, the singing high and piercing. It is not for entertainment. It is to please the ghosts, to give them something beautiful, if only for a night. You sit among the villagers, watching the shadows beyond the stage, wondering who sits in the front row, and whether they are watching back. The play ends with a single drum beat. A fire is lit. The priest returns, ringing his bell, scattering the last of the ashes into the wind. The crowd bows once, then again, and then, as quickly as it began, the night begins to fold itself away. You walk home beneath a sky now lighter, as if the air has been cleared by flame and song. But even now, you move carefully. You do not speak aloud. You do not whistle. You step over thresholds with your right foot first, because some ghosts are full now, but others are still hungry. Night falls heavier in the countryside. Here, the sky is not lit by lanterns or prayers, but by the cold shimmer of distant stars, barely enough to see the path ahead. You follow a narrow trail that snakes between hills, lined with withered grass, and the faint scent of river mud. The wind whispers low tonight, as if not wanting to be heard. There is a story here, an old one, and it walks on quiet feet. In a small village nestled between forest and stream, the people still speak in hushed tones about the corpse walkers. They are not figures of folklore, they are real, or once were. You've seen the shrine outside town, offerings left at its cracked base, rice, salt, coins, a single shoe. They say this was the resting place of a walker, a man who carried the dead across provinces, through night and silence, without being seen. His name has been forgotten, but his shadow remains. You wait until midnight. That is when the tale begins. A hush falls across the village. Doors are barred, dogs tied inside. Even the crickets seem to pause. You stand at the edge of the old trail and listen. Then the faintest sound, wood tapping against stone, soft footsteps, not one set, but three. Out of the dark emerge two men, dressed in long black robes that barely rustle. Between them walks a third figure, taller, unmoving, supported by each man's arm. You realize with a shiver that the third is not walking at all. He is dead. The corpse walkers hold the wrists of the deceased, propping the body upright as they move forward in perfect rhythm. From a distance, it appears the corpse is walking. Up close, the illusion frays. The head sags, the feet drag, but the men never break pace. Step, step, tap, step. You duck behind a tree and watch. There is no ceremony, no sound. The walkers say nothing. They do not pray. They do not sing. They do not look behind them. In ancient China, remote villages often lacked burial sites. And when a loved one died far from home, their family would do anything, pay anything to bring the body back. But transport was dangerous, taboo. To touch the dead too openly was to invite misfortune, and so the corpse walkers were summoned, secretive, feared, necessary. You had heard rumors before. Bodies tied upright with bamboo rods, propped between two men under moonlight, carried through mountain passes like contraband. And now here it is, unfolding before you like a page from a vanished book. The path winds through the woods, and the trio follows it, without hesitation. One carries a lantern painted with a red character for return. The other carries nothing but the dead man's weight. They stop at a fork in the path, and hang a string of coins on a branch. An offering, a toll, a signal to the spirits that passage is being bought. The body wears no shoes. In death, one must not wear shoes with soles. The dead must not walk back. Yet here, the illusion is necessary. In some regions, they say the walk itself appeases the soul, allows it to leave properly. Without it, unrest festers. You wonder how they bear the weight, not of the body, but of the silence. To walk night after night, alone with death, never speaking, never sleeping in the same village twice. You imagine their dreams, or the lack of them. The body begins to sway slightly. The walkers adjust, gently, fluidly. There is care in their touch, even reverence. The dead may not see, but the walkers remember. They carry not only a body, but the grief of someone far away, waiting with incense and threadbare hope. As they pass beneath a bent cypress, one of the men glances toward you. For a moment your breath stops. His eyes are tired, hollow, but not unkind. He nods once, not in greeting, but in recognition. Then they pass, disappearing into the deeper dark. Later, when you return to the village, no one speaks of what you saw. The shrine remains, the offerings untouched, the stories unchanged. But you remember the rhythm of feet on stone, the swaying figure in black, the sound of the lantern chain brushing against cloth. You remember the weight of unspoken duty, the sacredness of anonymity. Not all heroes are seen, not all burdens are laid down. And as you drift into sleep, the wind outside your window stirs, not cold, not cruel, but like footsteps moving on, toward home. You descend into the earth, as if entering a dream, carved in silence. The stairs are shallow, worn smooth by the footsteps of centuries. The air shifts around you, cooler, heavier, thick with the scent of clay and ancient dust. At the bottom, a corridor stretches into dimness, lit by soft lanterns, hung like floating moons. You walk forward and then you see them, rows upon rows of soldiers, still, grey, unblinking, the terracotta warriors. They stand taller than most men, frozen mid-stride, each with a face uniquely sculpted, brows furrowed, eyes sharp, palms open or clenched around weapons long since vanished. Some have mustaches like ripples in wind, others wear armor etched with patterns of scaled leather, perfectly symmetrical. No two are alike, and all of them are dead. Yet none of them lived. This is the tomb of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of a unified China, a man so consumed by the fear of death that he bent the world to conquer it. He forged an empire with fire and sword, burned books, buried scholars, and in the shadow of his throne, ordered the creation of an army to follow him beyond the grave. You walk through the silent ranks, each step echoing softly across the stone floor. A sense of awe presses on your shoulders, not fear, reverence. The scale of it defies the limits of life. Thousands of warriors, archers, generals, horses, chariots, and somewhere deeper still, untouched, the emperor himself, buried beneath a hill said to contain rivers of mercury and ceilings inlaid with stars. His tomb has never been opened. You pause beside a kneeling archer, his back straight, fingers poised to draw a bow long crumbled into dust. His expression is calm, but alert, the face of a man ready to fight, even in death. You imagine the sculptor who molded him, perhaps drawing from memory, perhaps inventing a face to guard the emperor's soul. What did he feel, that nameless artisan, as he shaped clay into eternity? They say that tens of thousands labored here, many never leaving. Some claim they were buried alive to preserve the tomb's secrets. You touch the edge of a broken shield, and feel the weight of that silence. Not just of the dead, but of those who made death their labor. Deeper in the complex, you pass through a hall of horses, life-sized, and still mid-trot. The detail is uncanny. Nostrils flared, eyes wide, mans tied into neat, coiled knots. You learn that they were meant to pull chariots into the spirit realm, to charge across ghostly plains beside their emperor. Even the animals, it seems, were not spared. And then, farther still, the artisans, rows of clay figures depicting acrobats, dancers, musicians, entertainers, sealed in darkness, forever performing for a king who would never wake. It is here you feel the human pulse, beneath the monument. Not the grandeur, not the might, but the loneliness. This was not a tomb built from peace. It was built from terror, of death, of insignificance, of the final silence. Qin Shi Huang sought immortality, even sent envoys to find the elixir of life. But in the end, what he built was not eternity. It was a theatre of ghosts. You kneel for a moment in the dust, imagining what lies beneath the hill. The emperor's chamber, still sealed, untouched by light. Rumors speak of traps, rivers of poison, enchanted seals, but perhaps the true curse is simpler. But in seeking to live forever, he buried himself deeper than time. A guide passes by, speaking in low tones to a group of visitors. You catch fragments. Excavation, preservation, speculation, but none of that matters now. What matters is this: you are in the company of thousands who never breathed, but who hold more presence than many who did. You run your fingers along the grooves of a warrior's armor. It is cool, hard, steady. A soldier who never wept, never bled, never fled, and yet, you feel something beneath the surface. A kind of longing, not from the statue, from the one who made it. The potter, the craftsman, the nameless hands that shaped life into unlife. Outside, the wind rustles the long grass above the buried emperor. The sky turns its back. But down here, in the soft breath of stone and earth, you sense a strange kind of peace. Not joy, not triumph, but stillness. You turn back toward the entrance, leaving the army behind. Their watch continues. Their silence holds, and behind every clay face, behind every stiff palm, a question remains. What are we building when we try not to die? The sun slips behind the hills like a tired god, leaving the earth to cool in shades of iron and smoke. You wander beyond the edge of the village, where the roofs grow lower, the streets narrower, and the air heavier with soot and silence. Here, far from temples and ancestral halls, lies a forgotten corner, a cemetery for the nameless. The headstones are uneven, if they exist at all. Many graves are marked by stones barely larger than a fist, or by weather-worn sticks, planted like brittle flags. The soil is dry, cracked, scattered with wind-blown straw and footprints that lead nowhere. You see no flowers, no names, only the shape of grief that lacks witnesses. And yet, someone is here. They huddle near the wall, 5 of them, maybe 6, wrapped in layers of tattered cloth, their outlines barely distinguishable from the rocks around them. Beggars, the villagers say, vagrants, unwanted shadows. But they do not steal, they do not cry, they tend to the graves that no one else remembers. One of them, a woman with hair like unraveling rope, kneels at a small mound. Her fingers brush the dirt, as though smoothing a child's blanket. She hums a tune with no words, a lullaby worn thin by wind. Beside her lies a single offering, a cracked bowl filled with rice husks and 2 dried plums, meager yet offered with care. You approach cautiously, and she looks up. Her eyes are sharp, but not unkind. She gestures to the mound. A sister, she says. Or maybe just someone I found. You don't ask which. It doesn't matter. In this place, the act of remembering is its own form of kinship. Others shuffle near, dragging bundles of wood, bits of wax, scraps of paper they've collected from alleyways. One man, barefoot, his feet bound in ragged cloth, begins to light a candle stub. The flame flickers uncertainly, then steadies. Around it, the others gather. No prayers are spoken, no chants, just silence and breath. You learn that they come here every night, not because they are paid or compelled, but because they believe no soul should vanish alone. They tell you between sips of boiled water and bits of root that many of these graves belong to the abandoned, the plague dead, the prisoners, the infants born too early. They died without names, without funerals. In ancient Chinese belief, such souls could not find rest. They became yuhun, wandering spirits, cold and hungry, haunting the wind. But here by this wall, someone lights a candle for them. Someone remembers. One man, missing most of his teeth, begins to chant softly. His voice is hoarse, but the words fall like snow. The others join, humming a tune without structure. It is not beautiful, but it is whole. You close your eyes and let the sound wash over you. And for a moment, you feel it, a vast tenderness, carved from hardship. As the fire burns low, they bring out scraps of cloth, embroidered fragments, torn from forgotten sleeves, patched with threadbare care. Each scrap is placed at a grave, a quilt of colour in the ash-dark soil. A woman explains, clothes for the cold ones. You help lay a piece yourself, a strip of blue silk that smells faintly of river water and smoke. They do not stay long. The night deepens, and the cold stiffens. One by one, the beggars gather their meagre things and shuffle off into the shadows. They leave nothing behind but ash, wax, and silence. But you remain. You sit beside a nameless grave, warmed by the ghost of a flame. Above, the stars blink quietly, indifferent yet present. You think of all the rituals performed for emperors, jade suits, lacquered coffins, armies carved in stone, and then you look here, a thread of cloth, a whisper, a song, and still, this feels sacred. You realize, perhaps for the first time, that the value of a death does not come from wealth, but from whether someone stayed to bear witness. You rise, brush the dust from your knees, and walk back toward the village. The wall remains behind you, its edges crumbling, its graves nameless, but they are not unloved. Not tonight. The wind that moves across the low hills tonight carries something sharp, not cold, not wet, but secret. You feel it in your neck, behind your ears, in the soles of your feet. It moves like a whisper too long buried, brushing against bamboo stalks and the dry lips of forgotten tombs. You follow it down a path that no villager will name, toward a hollow of earth where grass refuses to grow. There is no marker here, no offering, no altar, only a scar in the dirt where the earth has been disturbed. You crouch beside the opening, no wider than a crawl space, and feel the breath of the tomb exhale into your face. Damp, stale, mineral-rich. This was once the resting place of someone important. You can see it in the stonework, carved lintels, worn symbols of rank, old paint flaking like ancient scabs. But now it is empty. Someone came before you. Someone entered the silence, not to honor the dead, but to steal from them. Tomb robbing, a crime as old as the tombs themselves. You learn quickly that in ancient China, even the most sacred graves were not immune. Behind the reverence for ancestors, beneath the layers of incense and ritual, there was temptation, jade, gold, bronzeware, rare lacquered cups, and always the hush of buried power. You crawl inside. The tunnel opens into a low chamber, its roof supported by cedar beams stained black from time. The walls are etched with fading brushwork, a painted procession of servants, animals, distant landscapes. You run your fingers along the mural, feeling the ghost of a mountain ridge crumble beneath your touch. Then you see it, a broken urn, toppled sideways, a crack in the sarcophagus, a cloth pouch, torn, half buried in the dust, empty. They were careful, but not silent. The tomb robbers of old were no less skilled than priests. They moved at night, carrying silk-wrapped tools to muffle sound, sandals stitched for silence. Some wore black from head to toe, others disguised themselves as monks, passing unnoticed through checkpoints. Always, they left before the morning bell. One scroll you read describes their rituals. binding their hands in red thread to ward off curses, burning dried mugwort at the tomb entrance, spitting wine 3 times into the dark before descending. These were not fools. They believed in spirits, but they believed in hunger more. You picture them here, 2, maybe 3, crawling on elbows, breath held, sweat running down their backs. One holds a map drawn on silk, ink faded from use. Another carries a chisel wrapped in linen. The third watches the sky, counting heartbeats between each toll of the night watch bell. Inside, they light no flame. They feel their way through the chamber, fingers trailing along lacquered coffins, polished tiles, the cool lips of bronze vessels. They listen for hollow spaces, hidden compartments, false walls, the clever designs of ancient architects, and when they find something worth taking, they do so without prayer. To rob a tomb was to rob memory, but the reward, unimaginable. Jade, cicadas placed under the tongue, hairpins of pure gold, calligraphy etched into tortoise shell, a sword that once touched the silk of a king's robe, and perhaps most coveted of all, scrolls of ancient knowledge, sealed in lead tubes, never read by mortal eyes. Yet not all treasures gleamed. Some tombs contained poison traps, pressure plates, mercury rivers. Some, it is said, were guarded by curses. You who enter shall forget your name, one inscription warned, and your sons shall forget yours. Still, they kept. One tomb yielded 1,000 bronze coins, another, a flute made from crane bone, but many gave nothing, just silence, just rot, just the weight of the dead watching in stillness. You step deeper into the chamber. You find what was once an altar, now smashed, its offerings scattered. A ceramic bowl, cracked clean in 2, a figurine of a horse missing its head, and in the far corner, where the shadows knot together, you see footprints, still faint, pressed into the dust. You kneel beside them, tracing the edges. Someone stood here recently. Suddenly the stillness tightens, not with danger, but with memory. You realize this place is not abandoned. It remembers. The stone, the dust, the broken things. They hold stories even the living have forgotten. You rise, brushing your hands against your robes, leaving the chamber the same way you entered. The air outside is cooler now, the stars sharper. You do not look back, for the dead do not always forgive. And though tomb robbers may vanish into history like smoke in a well, their footprints remain, not just in the earth, but in the silence they left behind. The sky is the color of boiled rice, heavy and pale. Fog curls at your ankles as you approach the family courtyard, where the ground has been swept clean, and a trail of white rice grains has been poured in a winding line from the threshold of the house to the gate of the cemetery road. Each grain is deliberate, placed by trembling fingers at dawn. You stand beside the mother as she finishes the trail. Her knees crack as she rises. In her hands she holds a thread-bound talisman, its red paper worn soft at the corners. She nods to you, not in greeting, but in invitation. The ritual is about to begin. It has been 49 days since her son died. In ancient Chinese belief, this is a sacred turning point. The soul, having wandered through the realms of rebirth, judgment and memory, may return, briefly, to say goodbye. But only if called. A clay bowl sits at the edge of the rice trail. Inside, 3 coins, a curl of burnt cloth, and a lock of the boy's hair. The priest, robed in grey, kneels beside it, drawing silent circles in the air with his finger. He chants in a voice that doesn't rise, but spreads, like ink dropped into still water. The mother kneels beside him. Her hands rest on the ground, her forehead touching the dirt. "Come home," she whispers. "Just once more." You feel something shift. Not the wind, not the temperature, but the stillness. The very air holds its breath. The rice grains glisten faintly, as though remembering light. You watch as incense is lit, long, thin sticks placed at the door, the windows, the edge of the well. Smoke curls in spirals, moving in directions that defy logic. The mother places a bowl of his favorite food beside the door. Fish soup with ginger, 3 slices of pickled radish, a boiled egg with the yolk cracked. No one eats. No one speaks above a whisper. Even the chickens are silent. The ritual continues. The priest steps carefully over the rice line, never breaking it. He rings a small bell once, then again, then once more. The sound is thin but piercing, like a thread drawn tight across the sky. It is said the bell calls the soul back, not by force, but by recognition, like a voice calling to someone in sleep. Suddenly, the candle at the altar flickers, not from wind, for there is none. The mother's eyes fill with tears. She does not cry out, instead she speaks a lullaby under her breath, the same one she used to sing when he was small, frightened of thunder. You do not see him, no one does, but you feel his presence, subtle, like the scent of something long stored in cedar wood. The priest bows 3 times and instructs the family to prepare for the farewell. A paper robe is brought out, folded neatly, stitched with thread the color of storm clouds. The mother places it at the door, along with a pair of straw sandals and a small mirror. She holds up the mirror, angled toward the rice path, and waits. The mirror trembles, only slightly. It is enough. The mother bows again, deeper this time, and says the final line. Walk softly, do not linger, be born again in kindness. Then the fire is lit. The robe burns first, curling into black flakes. The sandals follow. The mirror cracks down its center and turns white with heat. The priest throws the talisman into the flames. The rice line, so carefully laid, is swept away by hand, scattering like stars into soil. The return is over, but something remains. Not the spirit itself, but a residue, an afterglow, a warmth in the marrow. The way a song stays in your ears long after the voice is gone. The family exhales. The mother stands slowly, knees stiff, back aching, but she walks tall, not because her grief has passed, but because the door, once open, has now been closed. As you step away from the courtyard, you glance over your shoulder. A breeze stirs the empty bowl, tipping it sideways. The fish soup darkens the dirt, then disappears. You think of all the souls still wandering, those with no names called, no rice laid, no door kept open. And then you think of this boy, this small flicker of life, returned not with fear, but with love. And you wonder, not with dread, but with awe, if you were called, would you return? The room is small and windowless, lit only by the orange sigh of an oil lamp. You hear the wick crackle softly, like breath drawn in sleep. A woman sits cross-legged before an altar, no larger than a sewing table. Her hair is streaked with frost, coiled at the nape of her neck, like smoke bound in thread. She wears white, though the mourning period has long since ended. Her spine is straight. Her silence is alive. 7 winters have passed since her husband died, and still she sits. Each morning she prepares tea, 1 cup for herself, 1 for the soul she cannot touch. The cups are placed side by side on the altar, steam rising from both. The porcelain is chipped, the tea is weak, but the act is deliberate. This is not habit, it is devotion. You kneel beside her as she pours, hands steady, eyes never lifting from the flame. He liked it bitter, she says, almost smiling. Then she bows her head and offers the cup to the tablet before her, where her husband's name is inked in neat black brushstrokes. The characters are simple, but enduring. You feel the weight of their curves, not just letters, but promises. The room is quiet but not empty. Here, time has grown thick. The air carries the smell of sandalwood and boiled linen, of candle wax and aged rice. You see a robe folded carefully on the bed. His robe, a comb rests beside it, its teeth worn smooth. She still mends his clothing. She still speaks to him. She still makes room on the mat. In this corner of the world, widowhood is not a pause between lives. It is a continuation. You learn that in certain regions, especially among older generations, a widow would remain loyal to her husband in death, as in life, not by command, but by quiet ritual. She may never remarry. She may never share a room, but more than that, she carries his presence like a garment stitched into her skin. You notice the table set beside the altar, small bowls arranged with care, rice, dried mushrooms, half a salted plum. These offerings are not festival rites. They are daily meals. The food changes with the seasons. When apricots are ripe, she leaves 1 at the altar. When it snows, she brews ginger soup, so he won't feel the cold, she said. You do not ask if she believes he eats it. That is not the point. Belief here is not about evidence. It is about presence, about making space again and again for someone who no longer breathes. As the evening deepens, she lifts a small bell and rings it once. not loudly, just enough to stir the air. She speaks his name aloud, twice. Then she begins to recite a list of mundane things. How the stove is cracking again. How the neighbor's boy learned to write his name. How the chickens have stopped laying. Her voice is soft, but confident, like a thread pulled gently through cloth. She pauses only once when she says, "I miss your voice." Then she is silent. You realize she is not talking to memory. She is talking to a person, to a presence that still lives in the shape of the house. The slope of the mat, the sound of her breath rising and falling in the quiet. The altar is small, but it holds a world. Later, she unwraps a bundle of cloth, a pair of shoes, old but clean. He never liked bare feet, she explains. She places them beside the mat before bed, turned outward, red. Before sleeping, she burns a single stick of incense. She waves the smoke over the altar, over her heart, over the shoes. Then she lies down, facing the wall, her back to the altar, not to turn away, but to leave space. As you step outside, the moon is low, softened by cloud. The wind is gentle, brushing past the paper door, as if listening. You walk back along the path, your own feet quiet, your own breath shallow, and you wonder if love can survive silence, if it can outlast the body, if it can sleep beside you year after year without touch, without voice. Is it not still love? You do not answer aloud, but your heart bows. The morning begins with ash and broom. You arrive before the sun fully rises, its light still tangled in the mist, soft as rice flour. A family gathers at the foot of a hill, where a stone wall rises from the earth, uneven, moss-laced, and old enough to bleed history. It is not a wall of defense, nor one of separation. It is a wall of names. Each character carved into its surface is a doorway, each name a thread in the long weave of lineage. You watch as a boy, no older than 10, lifts a copper basin filled with warm water. His mother guides his hand, and together they splash it against the stone, rinsing away a film of dust and silence. This is the first rite of Qingming Tomb Sweeping Day. In ancient Chinese belief, to remember is not enough. Memory must be enacted, spoken, cleaned, fed. Ancestors are not passive shades. They are family, still. They dwell in tablets, in tombs, in walls, such as this one. They listen when spoken to. They wither when ignored. You kneel beside the family and pick up a reed broom. The bristles are soft, worn thin. You begin sweeping the base of the wall, careful not to disturb the small offerings nestled in its cracks. Dried oranges, hard candy, slivers of pork wrapped in wax paper. You notice the arrangement of the names top to bottom, oldest to youngest. At the very top, half erased by lichen, are the founding ancestors, their birth and death dates carved with reverent brushstrokes. One child traces a name with his fingertip and asks who it was. His grandmother leans close, eyes narrowing, as she recalls, "A poet," she says. "He once wrote a verse about chrysanthemums that made the governor weep." The child nods solemnly, not understanding, but absorbing. This is how lineage is carried, not through blood alone, but through story. Beneath each name there is a small indentation, some still whole, others chipped, where incense is placed. One by one, the sticks are lit. Smoke rises in columns, bending toward the east wind. It smells of sandalwood, resin, and old fire. You breathe it in, and with it, the weight of continuity. The eldest son opens a scroll. His voice is clear, deliberate. He reads the names aloud, one by one. Some of them catch in his throat, as if the syllables resist being awakened. Others flow freely, as though they had been weighted. After each name, the family bows, first from the waist, then lower, until their foreheads touch the ground. You follow suit. The earth is cold. Your palms press into the soil. The bow is not symbolic. It is submission, not to death, but to belonging. After the recitation, food is unpacked, not to eat, but to offer. Whole chickens, dumplings folded with thumb and finger, sweet cakes wrapped in lotus leaves. Each dish is placed carefully along the base of the wall. No one touches it. Not yet. The ancestors must eat first. Nearby, a man strikes a bronze bell 3 times. Its sound hums through the trees like a ripple across still water. Birds pause. Leaves shift. Somewhere, the past seems to stir. Then, The burning begins. Sheets of joss paper, some shaped like silver ingots, others stamped with old coins, are folded and lit. The fire is controlled, respectful. Flames rise, devour, disappear. You are told that these papers are currency in the afterlife. Payment for the comfort of those long gone. Even the dead, it seems, require sustenance. You step back and look again at the wall. So many names. Some crisp, some fading, some followed by titles. Scholar, merchant, widow, child. Others bear only a name, a year. But each one, regardless of station, receives the same offering. The same bow, the same smoke. You notice a blank space, a smooth stone, untouched by chisel, a place reserved for a name not yet spoken. The living, too, will join this wall. You feel the weight of it then, the desire not to vanish, not to be great, or wealthy, or remembered by all, just remembered by someone. Later, when the fire has gone cold and the incense spent, the family shares the remaining food among themselves. Not out of hunger, but tradition. To eat what the ancestors have blessed is to be bound by them, protected. What? You taste the dumplings, warm, soft, fragrant with chive. And as you chew you wonder, who will speak your name when your stone is old? Who will sweep the dust from your memory? You do not yet know, but you will leave a trail of kindness, of story, of breath, so that someone, someday, will follow it here. The entrance is barely visible, a slope of earth, swallowed by grass, half forgotten beneath the shoulder of a hill. You follow the guide's lantern through a narrow tunnel, carved in slanted steps, your hand brushing walls cool with condensation. The air grows thick, heavier with each breath, laced with the scent of clay, iron, and something older, the musk of stillness unbroken for centuries. You have entered a Han Dynasty tomb. This one was discovered by accident. A farmer tilling his field struck stone where there should have been soil. Now, the chamber lies open to scholars and silence alike, the tomb untouched, except by wind and reverence. As your eyes adjust, you begin to see it. Not a chamber of death, but of careful, cultivated waiting. A mirror rests at the far wall, its bronze surface dulled by time, but still reflecting faint outlines, placed not for vanity but to capture light, to remind the soul, even in the deepest dark, of its own shape. You crouch beside it and glimpse your own face, distorted, smudged with centuries. Beside the mirror, musical stones, flat slabs suspended from cords, once struck to call forth tones used in ritual music. The ancestors believed music reached across realms, soothing the soul's journey, echoing the rhythms of the cosmos. You tap one gently with your finger. The sound it makes is soft, hollow, lingering, like memory set to a single note. You turn and see garments carefully folded, preserved in clay jars, silk dyed with faded indigo, embroidered with scenes of deer beneath pine trees, symbols of long life and gentle passing. Not all tombs received such finery. This one belonged to a minor noble, perhaps a scholar, someone who wrote poetry in the shade of plum trees, someone who believed or hoped that beauty might endure after breath ceased. At the center of the room lies the coffin, lacquered black, its edges chipped but intact. It is smaller than you expected. The guide does not open it. No one does. The body, they say, still rests inside, preserved by luck, craftsmanship, and the stubborn dignity of stillness. You circle it slowly. Its sides are painted with motifs of clouds and cranes, both symbols of transcendence. Along the base, red paint traces the shape of a gate, the threshold between this world and the next. The imagery is not threatening. There are no demons here, only guides, only paths. In the corner stands a stand with scroll tubes, bamboo slats once joined by silk threads, now brittle with age. The characters are faded, some vanished entirely. You recognize one phrase, to pass gently, like the moon behind cloud. This was not a tomb built out of fear. It was a resting place arranged with grace, as if death itself were not an enemy, but a passage, a quiet folding of the day into night. You sit on a stone bench opposite the coffin. The silence in the tomb is not empty. It hums, like water, under ice. You imagine the rituals that brought the soul here, the bowing, the chanting, the carrying of light into the dark. You imagine the mourners placing offerings, candied fruits, calligraphy brushes, a flute. There are no tourists here. No ropes, no flashlights, only the oil lamp in the guide's hand, and the breath of centuries around your shoulders. He tells you the tomb is aligned along the dragon line, a channel of geomantic energy believed to bring peace to the soul. The stones above were arranged to mimic celestial patterns. Even in death, the dead were woven into the fabric of the stars. You close your eyes and breathe deeply. Here, the dead are not screaming. They are not clinging. They are not lost. They are waiting, not for resurrection, not for forgiveness, but for silence to be heard. As you rise, you bow slightly to the coffin, unsure whether out of respect or instinct. You do not speak. Words feel misplaced here. The guide leads you out, step by step, the tunnel narrowing behind you. The sunlight stings your eyes when you emerge. Birds call from the reeds. A breeze lifts your hair. The living world feels louder than before. Not unwelcome, just loud. But part of you lingers, there in that quiet room beneath the hill, where time has knelt down and made its peace. The moon hangs low, swollen and blurred, casting a pale film across the hills. You tread a narrow path, lit by fireflies, their glow pulsing like the breaths of unseen watchers. The forest is hushed, not by sleep, but by secrecy. There are no temples here, no altars sanctioned by emperor or elder, only a clearing veiled by vines, and the sound of whispering. You step through, and the fire greets you, a low, controlled flame encircled by stones and salt. Figures in rough robes move around it, their faces shadowed, their motions deliberate. One holds a scroll, another a painted gourd. None of them speak above a murmur. These are not villagers, not monks, not mourners. They are practitioners of forbidden rites. In ancient China, beyond the reach of Confucian ritual and imperial law, there were traditions the state could not control, shadow rituals, folk magic, secret invocations passed from mother to daughter, from hermit to initiate. You have stumbled into one such gathering, a woman with eyes lined in soot gestures for you to kneel. She offers no greeting, only a bowl filled with dried herbs, mugwort, peach pit, crushed lotus leaf. You take it, unsure, and watch as she tosses her own into the fire. It flares briefly, releasing a scent both sweet and bitter. Tonight's ritual is for the unsettled dead, those who died with injustice, or vengeance, or deep loneliness. These rites are not meant to pacify, but to negotiate, to speak across the veil, not with incense, but with urgency. The leader, an old man with a voice like rusted iron, begins to chant. His language is older than the empire, his rhythm uneven, like footsteps on gravel. A bell is rung, sharp and fast. A rooster feather is passed around the circle and burned. A piece of red thread is wrapped around your wrist. To keep you remembered, someone whispers. In the center of the fire they place a clay figure, roughly shaped, marked with symbols you do not know. It is not a representation of a god. It is a placeholder for the spirit they seek to bind or release. You learn of spirits' marriages, where the souls of the dead are wed by proxy to ensure peace in the next world. A family may find a match for a son who died young, arranging a union between two ghosts, complete with dowry and feast. To die unmarried was to die incomplete. You hear of soul-binding scrolls, wrapped around bones and buried at crossroads, trapping spirits until a vow was fulfilled, or grave reversal spells, used to turn misfortune back upon an enemy, by invoking the bones of the wronged. The group passes a bundle of joss paper shaped like teeth. Each person bites a piece, then tosses it into the flames. The fire snaps, then stills. Someone begins to weep, not loudly, but as if unthreading something deep and long held. You feel it too, a tightening in the ribs, a sense of being watched, not with malice, but with old, wounded hunger. You see then, this is not heresy, not horror. It is grief without a sanctioned path, love with no altar, fear spoken aloud, and yet these practices were condemned, outlawed, called dangerous, foolish, demonic. The empire feared what it could not tax or tame. Those who performed such rites were branded witches, criminals, ghosts themselves. Still, the rituals endured, in kitchens, in forests, in the margins. The fire begins to die. A girl kneels beside the last embers, presses her forehead to the earth, and whispers a name so softly you cannot hear it. She offers no prayer, no bow, only the name, over and over, until even the wind remembers it. Then the circle breaks. No farewell is spoken. The forest closes behind them, as if swallowing the clearing whole. You are left with the smoke and the scent of peachwood, and the thread around your wrist, still warm from strange hands. You walk back alone, the moon now veiled behind cloud. The wind feels different, less like breath, more like memory, and you realize that even the forbidden has its own holiness. Not in approval, but in necessity. The drum beats begin at dawn, low and slow, vibrating through stone and skin alike. You wake to the sound, drawn toward the palace, as the earth itself seems to bow. Even the birds fall silent. In the distance, the bell tower swings, its iron tongue calling the living to witness the grandeur of a death that will echo through centuries. The emperor has died. You enter through the side gate of the inner court, where rows of officials kneel in silence, their foreheads pressed to woven mats soaked in dew. They are dressed in deepest mourning, robes of undyed hemp, hair unbound, shoes removed. No one speaks, no one lifts their eye. You join them, forehead to ground, and feel the dust cling to your skin like judgment. In ancient China, the death of an emperor was not merely a royal event, it was a cosmic rupture. The Son of Heaven, the bridge between earth and the divine, had ceased to breathe. All of nature responded, flags hung inverted, markets closed, music silenced, marriages postponed. For 100 days, the empire would mourn. You are led into the hall of eternal light, where the emperor's body rests behind a screen of silk, so fine you can see the outline of his face, serene, pale, untouched by rot. He is dressed in robes of gold thread and midnight blue, his hands folded around a jade scepter, his lips sealed with cinnabar. His hair is combed and pinned. He looks less like a man than a sculpture of power at rest. Beside him, rows of attendants stand motionless, their expressions carved in reverence. Some have served him for decades, pouring tea, adjusting scrolls, holding umbrellas, and will now follow him into death. Not metaphorically, literally. It is the ancient law. The practice is not as widespread as it once was. Yet for emperors of certain dynasties, selected servants were entombed alive. A young eunuch trembles beside you, eyes wide with the knowledge that he has been chosen. He says nothing. His silence is his last loyalty. In the antechamber, the ministers recite the imperial liturgy, a series of chants older than ink, echoing from scrolls that predate the throne. They call upon the ancestors, the celestial court, the four directions. They declare the virtues of the emperor, his mercy, his wisdom, his divine mandate. You know some of it is myth, everyone does, but no one dares omit it. A golden tablet bearing the emperor's name is placed in a lacquered case and carried to the ancestral shrine. There, it will rest among the spirits of rulers past, becoming in death an object of veneration, a household god on a grander scale. But the burial, that is the spectacle. You follow the procession out of the city, past walls draped in white silk, through avenues lined with kneeling citizens. They do not cheer, they do not weep loudly. Mourning for an emperor is solemn, controlled, a state ritual, not a personal grief. The tomb lies beneath a man-made hill, sealed by bronze doors and guarded by silent soldiers who will not be replaced. Inside, treasures of unimaginable worth. Chariots, swords, silk banners, zither harps, scrolls of philosophy and war, all meant to accompany the emperor into the next world, where he will rule once more. As the coffin is lowered, the ground shakes faintly. Some say it is from the weight of the tomb doors. Others believe it is the emperor's soul departing, so powerful that even stone must tremble. Then come the towers. 2 wooden pyres are lit at the entrance, one for the imperial edict of life, now burned to release his spirit from duty, the other for petitions never answered, cast into flame in hopes the emperor will read them at last. The smoke rises high, dark and curling, like dragon breath. The man steps forward and strikes a gong. Once, twice, then no more. That sound means the tomb is sealed. The emperor has entered eternity. His name will be spoken only in whispers, his image bowed to at altars, his legacy debated for centuries. And yet, beneath the lacquer, the jade, the ritual, a body lies still, like any other. Unbreathing, unknown. You walk away slowly, past statues of stone lions and kneeling scholars, past incense holders still warm. You think of the emperor not as ruler or god, but as a man who once feared the same thing all men do, the end. He had everything carved in gold, and yet he could not bring the sky closer. He could only lie beneath it, like the rest of us. The river is still tonight, its black surface a ribbon of glass, stretching beneath willow branches heavy with dew. You walk slowly along the banks, following the soft shuffling of sandals, the muffled rustle of silk robes. The festival has begun, though no one claps, no one cheers. It is not a celebration of life. It is the ghost festival, the final night. And this is the lighting of the water lanterns. Each family arrives bearing a single flame, cradled in thin fingers, cupped like breath. The lanterns they carry are fragile, paper boxes shaped like lotus blossoms, some painted with ancestral names, others left blank for spirits no longer remembered. Each lantern is placed on a wooden base, a wick inside, a whisper of fire waiting to float. You are handed one. The paper is soft and damp with fog, the edges trembling in your hands. A brush is offered, and you hesitate. Whose name will you write? Whose spirit will follow this tiny flicker across the dark? You write no name, just a single word: peace. The riverbank glows now with hundreds of lanterns, their light flickering in pools of amber and gold. The air smells of wax and wilted lilies. A child kneels beside his grandmother, who helps him light his lantern. He whispers a name into the wind, a name he will not remember by next summer, but which the river might carry forever. A monk chants at the water's edge, his voice low and rhythmical, as steady as the current. He speaks to the lost, the unclaimed, the wandering. Eat what you were given, he says. Take the light and go. And one by one, the lanterns are released. They bob on the surface, drifting outward like stars fallen into water. Each one pulses gently with its own heartbeat, gliding past reeds and branches, past the gnarled roots of trees older than the stories they guard. Some lanterns drift far, others spin in place. A few gutter and vanish before they reach the current. You kneel beside a woman who hasn't spoken since she arrived. Her lantern holds two names. Her eyes never leave it. When the wind tilts it slightly and the flame flickers, her breath catches. But it rights itself, and she bows deeply, forehead touching stone. This is the last offering. Not food, not incense, not jade or gold. Just light. A guide for the spirits who still wander. A farewell to those who linger. An apology, perhaps, for forgetting, or for remembering too late. You watch as your own lantern drifts away, its glow dimming, but not disappearing. It moves with the others, a quiet constellation reborn on the surface of the world. You feel the hush settle over the crowd, not sadness, not even mourning, but a kind of sacred fatigue. The work of remembrance is done, for now. Some say the souls follow the lanterns to the sea, where they dissolve into mist and return to the cycle. Others believe the light shows them the way home, to be reborn, or to rest, finally among the roots of the world. A boy beside you whispers that he saw a lantern lift into the sky, that it didn't sink or fade but rose. You smile, though you know it's just a story. And yet, in this night of drifting fire, what is it? As the last lantern disappears around a bend in the river, the monk rings a final bell. Once, twice, 3 times. Then silence. No one claps. No one speaks. They simply stand, watch the water, and walk away, one by one. You linger. The reeds sway gently, and the night breathes again. You close your eyes, the image of the lanterns etched behind your lids. You imagine the river beneath the surface, deep, ancient, filled with more names than can be spoken. Some remembered, some lost, all carried. You place your hand on the earth, and for a moment the warmth of the flame still lives in your palm. The street is made of poured concrete, grey and unremarkable, bordered by neon signs and shuttered fruit stalls. A delivery cart rattles past, and schoolchildren chase each other beneath the shadow of a cell tower. The noise is ordinary. Distant sirens, plastic wheels on pavement, a vendor's call crackling through a speaker. But beneath the soles of your feet, something ancient sleeps. You are walking over the dead, not metaphorically, not in some poetic sense. Beneath this modern road lies a tomb, tiled and lacquered, sealed in dynastic dust, forgotten when the foundation was poured, paved over by time and memory and progress. You know this because the records were found in a provincial archive, misfiled under irrigation, and now you are here, standing above what was once sacred, wondering what has been lost beneath the weight of convenience. You pause at the edge of a construction site where a backhoe idles. A man in a yellow vest explains that during excavation, workers uncovered fragments, a shard of painted ceramic, a copper clasp, the curve of a bone. We sent it to the museum, he shrugs, but the project must continue. There is no plaque, no sign, no incense, only. You walk the perimeter slowly. Beneath each footfall, you imagine the chambers lined with silks, now turned to dust, scrolls illegible, mirrors dulled. Perhaps it was a poet buried here, or a merchant, or a girl who died too young to marry, sent into the next world with a dowry of dolls and hairpins. Whoever they were, the earth held them gently, for a time. But time gave way to need, and need gave way to cement. You crouch beside a drain where weeds push through the cracks. There, half buried in grit, is a brick, not modern, but hand-fired, its edge etched faintly with a pattern of clouds. You lift it, turning it in your hand, feeling the texture of another century pressed into your palm. No one stops you, no one notices. A woman walks by pushing a stroller. A man on a scooter curses at traffic. A plastic bag flutters like a trapped soul in the gutter. The city does not mourn, but you do. Not with tears, not with words, with awareness. You press your hand against the ground and try to feel what is no longer here. The chants, the bowing, the smell of sandalwood, the sound of dirt falling gently onto a coffin lid. You imagine a time when this space was quiet, when families gathered to weep, to honor, to remember. Now, they pass overhead, unaware, their shadows falling across graves like brief accidental blessings. You wonder how many others there are. How many bones lie beneath high rises? How many spirit tablets were shattered when the walls came down? How many names were erased without malice? Just forgotten, swept up in the tide of rebuilding. But the earth remembers, even when maps do not, even when ledgers are burned, and names are lost, and offerings are replaced by scaffolding. It remembers in the way grass refuses to die in certain corners, in the way dust settles quicker here, in the way silence sometimes returns for no reason at all, like an old friend who never left. You return the brick to the soil and rise. A child laughs in the distance. A dog barks once, then is quiet. Somewhere, a temple bell rings, faint and confused, swallowed by car horns and wind. You walk on, but you step lightly now, because beneath your feet is a world once mourned, once tended, once loved, and it is still there, listening. As the incense fades and the river darkens, I hope this story stays with you, not as sorrow, but as reverence. The past is never truly buried. Thank you for walking this quiet path with me. Subscribe if your heart still carries echoes, and return again to listen and to remember. What part of this journey into ancient death stayed with you most? Would you leave offerings for the ones you've lost? Could you carry grief as ritual instead of silence?